Hello and welcome to Breaking Ground on iPropertyRadio with myself, Carol Tallon, the show where we chat to industry experts to get a view on what's happening on the ground and to learn about new trends emerging within the construction industry. This show is brought to you in partnership with Place Engage, a data-driven platform for more successful public consultation and community engagement for your next development project. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Cilian Canavan, Business Development Manager with Amvic Ireland and ICF Advocate. Cillian, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thanks a million for having me, Carol. Fantastic work you're doing out there.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, look, regular listeners will know that we talk a lot about all the different categories of MMC. And ICF is a method of construction that there's an increasing conversation around it, and yet it's really not that new. It's actually been very well adopted in Ireland, including across the delivery of your own company. So you might just give us a little bit of background about Amvic Ireland. When did it start, and at what scale are you delivering?
I suppose Amvic Ireland is an Irish-owned company. Pat Martin and George Richardson are the two founding pioneers of ICF in Ireland. The company was founded in 2006, so we're in our 19th year. We started off in Nice, and now at this present time we have a major facility in Longford and in Dublin, and we're delivering nearly 1,800 units a year in 2023. We have capacity to deliver 3,000 to 3,500, and with minimum investment, we can actually increase that to 4,500. That's we are out there and we're going to fill the factory. So we're literally trying to make everyone aware of it's a great system. But ICF in general is probably 60 years old.
Well, talk to us about ICF, because we're using it. We're using the language, we're using the terminology, but actually explain to people who might not be familiar, what is ICF?
ICF is insulated concrete format. So it's glorified shuttering. So there's insulation on both sides of the building. Concrete's poured in the middle with rebar every second course. So it's designed by the engineer. We have a structural design that we'll send out to people to help them. It's valued engineering, and it'll help the engineers and the builders to use minimum amount of steel, which is also the maximum amount you meant to use. But obviously it's down to the engineers to sign off on it. But we have Clifton Scanlon Engineering have completed our structural design guide, which is very helpful. So if anyone wants to ask us for it, no problem, we can send it on.
And you mentioned there when you were talking about the company that you delivered 1,800 homes just last year, and actually that capacity is on track to double for 2024 and can continue ramping up. So who are you building for? Where are your homes?
Well, sorry, the capacity is in place at the moment. Like, we can deliver the 3,500 units a year now. So we're doing a lot of work for councils, all the approved housing bodies, a lot of the big major companies, the tier 1, tier 2, down to the one-offs, small, medium, large, everything. We do nursing homes, creches. We're doing 120 bedroom nursing home in Gorey. We've another 100 bedroom one in Swords in Rollstown. So we do apartments up to 6 stories. So but duplex is a big one for us now, because it's so easily done with the ICF. So we've a great range of different jobs, and we're not tied into one sector.
And do you work directly with councils and the approved housing bodies, or do you work under a main contractor?
We work, we advise, we make sure that our block is in the right hands. So we'd meet up with the design teams, we'd educate them, or we'd help them through the whole design, and we'd literally we're there on the phone if they need us for anything. So we work for not the councils directly, but the councils know it's our product being used.
And Why ICF? You know, we talk about the different modern methods of construction. There are huge benefits to offsite that we explore here on a weekly basis. Talk me through the benefits of ICF in terms of you're delivering a large scale housing. Does it speed up the time? Like, what are the key benefits?
The key benefit is obviously it's I suppose it's cost effective, short lead times, very short lead times. Like if you order blocks off us, we can have it out to you in 2 weeks. Um, we have it's rapid build, and once it's in the right hands, we can meet any program out there. But we've met any program out there to date. So if it's 6, 8 houses a week, you're looking to we can ramp up. But we will work with subcontractors who are approved installers. So we know our block is in the right hands.
Cillian, there was an interesting survey done recently by one of the building magazines that said that only 5 out of the top 50 contractors had not visited an ICF site or considered ICF as part of their build consideration, which is huge. You know, so you're talking about 45 of the top 50 contractors considering this or doing this. So we can see the adoption is strong there, but when you're meeting people who haven't used it for the first time, what surprises them?
Speed. And then instead of obviously instead of a stick frame, timber frame house, you're getting a 6-inch core concrete house. So it's reinforced. So sound, it meets all the regulations. Obviously, it can be. We have houses around the country on developments coming in at carbon neutral, which is great to hear. So not even negative. It's like hard for negative, sorry. So it's whatever.
Will you explain that to me? Because, you know, so much what we talk about on the construction side now, the conversation is increasingly, when we're not complaining about planning, the conversation is increasingly about the challenges in achieving net zero. And, you know, up until maybe 3, 4 years ago, carbon offsetting was really being heavily used, and that's just no longer acceptable to use. So when you look at, you know, in the quest and the struggle to achieve carbon neutrality, for you to go to carbon negative, will you explain how that works?
I suppose if everything is designed around with the ICF in mind, and everything's designed, obviously we can help with that. People, if they use our 350 block, which is the white one here, it's a thicker one, and then they did the calculations, and listen, they're performing, houses are performing 18 years later, 19 years later. But
Cillian, you know, I'm just going to take a moment here to say to anybody who's listening on Spotify or on any of our podcast streams to head over to the YouTube channel, and you'll actually be able to see. You'll see some of the bricks behind Cillian on our video there, and it's definitely worth taking a look at, because in a way it brings the system to life when you're able to see what goes on the inside. And Cillian, you
see, our block is one thing about let's see, ours is a straight in a corner, right? So it's a reversible corner. So the system is male, female. So the system is one corner does both corners, if you know what I mean. So it's the same thickness on each side. So you're looking at minimum waste. Like we've seen sites at 2% waste. So if you're looking at the block here, let's say the one that's using most sites, the 300 block, that is 75. So you can flip that around, cut it in half, whatever you have to do, and it just creates little waste. Like as I said, we've sites 2% waste, so we look to get between 2 and 5% waste. So there's no silos there taking up electricity. There's no diggers driving around. Once our lads are fed in the morning, half an hour a day in teleporter, that's them for the day. Yeah. They'll build away. You only need half the scaffolding because it's only on the outside, and we're literally we can hit any kind of program. We'll try to any kind of program, but we haven't missed any to date.
Fantastic. And I think you touched on something important there that we have discussed on previous shows, but maybe in a slightly different context. But you said really that all these savings can really be achieved when the development is designed for ICF. And how
Yeah,
important is that? And is that happening on the ground? Because we know the RIAI and other bodies, including MMC Ireland, have really been pushing for design for manufacturing and assembly, DFMA. It's a driving force. It's something that every time we interview anybody, whether it's a structural engineer or a manufacturer delivering on the ground, the key always seems to be designing for the right solution as opposed to designing the development and then going shopping for the solution.
yeah.
Is that happening, with our current procurement processes? Is that actually happening? Are we doing things the right way around?
I find out that we find the first job, it might be a different system and our ICF is being used. And then when we show them, like we'll engage with their design team on engineers and we'll design it for ICF. So we'll have heights and we find that after one or two developments, they'll be designed in ICF, and then you're looking at mass production on site, delivering back to their investors quicker. Some sites there, there's one site in Ennis there that they're completing houses in literally 10 to 12 weeks, completing houses, doors on the whole lot. Our installer down there is doing around 8 a week because it's designed in ICF. So it's literally everything's the same.
And Cillian, talk to us a little, if you can, about the pipeline for Amvic Ireland for 2024. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
The ICF market, low rise market last year, we reckon was around 12.5% in ICF, and it's growing rapidly. The market's coming to us. So we find that we are getting a lot more attention, maybe too much attention that we're being slated by other sectors. But come here, that happens. It happened with the
Listen,
timber crowd.
I think the timber frame guys can hold their own.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. They probably came across it 30 years ago. So we're in that stage now. We're growing nicely. We're literally out the door at the moment, but we have plenty more capacity to grow further, and we will grow further. And it's a matter of at the moment, as I said, the market's coming to us.
Well, let's talk about maybe we talked about that survey that showed the top contractors, but there's a huge rest of the market there. So how are you actually educating? How are you reaching out to people maybe who have been involved in traditional construction for decades and they just don't know how to make the leap, because there is a risk involved. And I think the margins in construction are so tight. I think the uncertainty over the last number of years have made people very risk adverse. It's been very difficult to prioritize innovation. So while I sit here every week and talk about the need to do it, I'm very aware that the reality on the ground is that the conditions are really tough there, that they don't lend themselves to being able to invest in new technologies or to think about future proofing. It's very difficult to think about future proofing when you're in survival mode. And for so many people in construction, they've been in survival mode since COVID, since before COVID, and that's the reality. So how are you reaching and how are you communicating maybe with that sector of the construction
I
industry?
suppose the days of the poor old bricklayer, they're like hen's teeth these days. They're very hard to get, and the companies have to go and look elsewhere. But we find, once we bring a customer down to site, we find when they see a site visit, they ask all the questions, and that's the best way you can explain how it works. And all our main customers, many of our biggest customers, all start off on the site.
And it's interesting when we were discussing the benefits there of ICF. Obviously we looked at um, building performance, obviously the sustainability element, the cost, and the speed. But actually, we never touched on labour, and we know that labour is such an issue for the industry across the board at all levels across the industry. In terms of, do you have any stats in terms of maybe the labour savings that can be achieved through ICF?
Yeah, well, it's usually a crew of four. So obviously it's as you see, it's very light. So there's health and safety love it. So the lads will, you can see it's male, female. They throw it up fairly quick. The poor bricklayers, as I said, they're very hard to get. The timber crowd have a lot of would you say, traction out there, but they've only a capacity that can deliver so many. So when it does come to the crunch, the market can only deliver a certain amount unless people come and use other methods of construction. And we have the capacity there waiting for anyone to come and take it. Like there's literally 1,500 units ready to go there whenever anyone comes up.
Well, and I think you've raised an interesting point as well. When we're looking at the different types of technologies, and we really do embrace innovation, and we try to showcase as many of the different technologies as we can. The reality is there are going to be some that suit certain sites and certain style of projects. So we're never advocates of one size fits all, one solution fits all, one is best, and everything else comes behind it. It really is a case of tailoring the solution to the project. In Ireland, does that happen at an early enough stage?
It's starting to happen now. I believe that definitely people are engaging us more at early stages, so we can help them to save money by building a house that will suit the ICF. And there's obviously you're bringing awareness to it. There's a lot more awareness to the MMC, and I suppose that in 10 years' time, will there be any bricklayers? That's the unfortunately we lost a generation in 2010. Yeah. So we can see at the moment, we can see, I'd say in 2026, 27, we can see ICF being at least 20% of the market.
And when your installers go on site, I'm very conscious that they are part of the project. They're part of the supply chain, but there's a lot of other players that are coming in before, during, and after. What are some of the, I don't want to say maybe some of the mistakes you see, but what are some of the elements maybe that we're not doing right to support ICF really to get the maximum benefit for it to really live up to its maximum potential?
I suppose maybe engage with us earlier, and we can help them. I suppose there's different details, and obviously it's very important that the right guy is putting the block down. I suppose there's a saying there. What's the difference between God and concrete? God will forgive you. So,
that Cillian.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So, and a lot of our guys now, our installers, are actually doing the brick slip or brick, and they're doing the render as well as a package with the core raft. So we do a lot of work. A lot of our jobs are limestone, brick slip, and then we have different render companies like Parks, Kilsaran, we have what's the name of them there? Chadwick's. And so we have Beaumont, they're a great system. And we use a lot of our installers doing more of a package now. So we're not, so the ICF is being done by our installers. They're also doing the render and maybe the brick slip. They're doing the raft. So they're doing more than what you can put the sills in.
Yeah, so you're reducing, I suppose, the risk of any part of the supply chain kind of dropping the ball on this. And one of the things I'm always curious about is you know, when you're speaking to, you know, you're in the capacity of business development, when you're speaking to project owners or perhaps even main contractors who haven't worked with ICF previously, what kind of questions do they ask?
You come across every time a question, you know, where's the cavity? There's no cavity, and they panic. Well, I suppose if you can sit down and explain it with the right guys, the right guys, if they explain them, show them a site. It's just education. Like you still have guys that will never ever change. I could name 4 or 5 builders out there that will never change. But there's 4 or 5 builders that I said wouldn't change that have changed. And they've gone all ICF. So I suppose it's some of you will not change.
Does ICF integrate with other technologies?
Yeah, well, a lot of people think the big saving in ICF on factor is speed inside, because once the lads are finished the ICF and the roof is on, you can start indoor chasing, plasterboard screwed on. So it's like a apprentice's dream. He comes in, he uses a hot knife, chases the wires down the wall, screws on his 12.5 mil plasterboard, and there you go, done. Like it's very quick, and no dry out time. It's fantastic.
Very good. And just, I suppose I'm conscious of time now, so, and I know we need to finish up, but you know, we talked about labour and the labour shortages, how they're affecting all of the industry, and this is not a uniquely Irish problem. It's the same. It's the same across Europe and in many other countries. But in terms of your own capacity there, how are you finding attracting talent? Are there more people coming into this industry, coming to work?
Massively, yeah. But it's getting the right guys and giving them the right training at the start. So we always put lads on site, hands-on site, and monitor progress. And usually, once you hold a hand for a few months, they'll take off, and but there's plenty of people out there doing ICF, and we've plenty of guys that can do a lot more ICF. Like we've companies that we use that can ramp up fairly quick as well, and have ramped up. Like we've 1 or 2 installing contractors are on 7 or 8 sites.
Yeah, and well, look, to be fair, I think the state has done a really good job and maybe doesn't get the recognition it deserves. But in recent years, in terms of, you know, it maybe wasn't fast enough, but it did recognise the labour shortages, and not just in terms of uh, lack of people coming into this industry, but also in terms of the skill set of people within the industry. So there's been a huge upskilling program. You know, we have our construction skills net, we have an MMC skills net, we have so many programs focused from apprentice level right through to reskilling at any career stage. And I think one of the key drivers as well has been Enterprise Ireland, particularly in being that bridge between traditional construction and manufacturing. And I think that's been a really important one. How do you see the ecosystem in Ireland? I mean, is it one that you think is conducive? Are we doing the right things in Ireland to allow not just ICF, but MMC in general to really be able to scale?
Well, I think first thing, we are doing the right things. I do think that height isn't the option. I think keeping it low-rise building, real community-like villages still. We find a lot of towns need development, and they need good houses. So, like, I don't think it should be all focused towards Dublin. It should be the way it is now. They're spreading out. We've jobs in every county in the country at the moment, which is great. Dublin probably, there's not many houses being built. So even 6-story on lower, it's very hard to get anything in Dublin for ICF. There's not much going on. It's all 7, 8, 9-story high.
And
so I think,
yeah, in terms of your own pipeline, where will we see Amvic Ireland signage across Ireland in 2024?
Well, we'll definitely be looking at hitting 2,500 this year. And we're long-term plan, we're going to be hitting the 3,500 by 2026.
And where will those be around the country this year?
We've big jobs in Wexford, Wicklow, Kilkenny, Ennis, St. Clair, KPH doing tremendous work. Clancy Homes are doing fantastic work on many sites. So it's all the big cities are really very popular for ICF. Obviously, as I said, some councils it's no, but most of them are very open to it. I think there's a new generation of professionals coming through that are very good and very open to this change. The days of the old school, I think, we have to move forward. We need to build houses. This housing crisis, but we're we would consider it a trusted alternative in this housing crisis because we're 20 years going and we're here for the long haul.
Look, and I absolutely hope that what you're experiencing on the ground is true right across Ireland, that we are seeing that shift. And look, maybe it's the next generation being more forward looking, or maybe it's as simple as recognizing that ICF and other modern methods of construction are really a solution to a very severe housing crisis that we have, and the delivery that we need to ramp up. So we certainly hope that's true. So I suppose before we finish up, Cillian, final question, what would you say to people maybe, or what's the most important thing that people who might be curious about ICF but haven't actually explored it yet in terms of their next project or development, what's the one thing the most important thing that they need to know?
Well, I'd love them to engage pre-planning, or so we can help design the houses, or definitely contact us, come to the site. ICF in general, it doesn't have to be Amvic Ireland. Like, I know we're the leading ICF company, but ICF, we don't consider ICF a competition. We're out there, there's plenty of room for everyone. So we just think engage with us early and don't be afraid to ring us, because we'll call out, we'll help you. We meet design teams and educate them daily. And once we'll spend the time with them. We don't just run away, get a job and run away. We're there for the whole duration.
Cillian, that's
built into our genetics.
Yeah. That's a great ethos. And as we can see out there, there's plenty for everybody. We need more innovators coming into this space. We need more solution providers. So that's a really good ethos. And thank you so much for sharing.
Even one other thing there, coming from where I worked before, like I did 23 years in the construction sector in a different company. And, it was totally, back then it was all blocks, blocks and concrete. That was it. And no one knew about ICF. And even to this day, people go to me, what is ICF? And like, I can't understand, but come here, that's it. But people, once they see it, but you see, there's another thing is, one bad job taints the whole industry, right? So one bad job shouldn't taint one ICF company. Like, we try to make sure that every job we do is the block is in the right hands. Okay. So for anyone that's thinking of doing ICF, it's a great, quick, rapid solution, and it provides a quality house. Listen, you're looking at a bomb shelter, concrete bomb shelter, that'll heat for generations.
Fantastic, Cillian. And by the way, if anybody comes up to you again and asks about ICF, you send them this video. And for anybody, just a reminder for anybody listening in on audio only, it's definitely worth heading over to YouTube to see the video so you can actually see the setup, including the brick slip that Cillian has behind him. So that's all we've time for today. My thanks to Cilian Canavan, a business development manager with Amvic Ireland. Also thanks to show producer Carol Tallon and to the production team at Hear Me Roar Media. Also, my thanks to Place Engage for making these conversations possible. And finally, thank you indeed for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode of Breaking Ground. In the meantime, please be sure to subscribe and to check out all of the other Irish and international real estate and construction shows on iProperty Radio.